Okay, I thought I would add this. I didn't add it in the last, so I'm going to put it in the comments this video. But as you can see, this area I painted by accident. So I'm going to show you how to remove the paint, because I'm sure you're going to make a mistake along the way, which is okay. For me, because I paint a lot of boards and I just like color, I'm not as particular, but sometimes I'd make a mistake that's big and I definitely need to remove the paint. So this board hasn't been varnished yet, so that's a massive plus. So because it's glass, it's removable. So I'm going to be able to remove this without any hard chemicals like acetone. But let me just check if we can remove it with what we've got with the tools. So right now in the starter kit, we got a scour pad, we have masking tape, we have a sandpaper block, we have steel wool. So they're kind of our tools that will help us remove this without using chemicals, which is always the best way to go, because once you start using acetone, yes, it's a paint thinner, or terps, they're paint thinners, and they're really good in some cases. Like if you use varnish, for example, and you needed to get the paint off, then you could use terps or acetone. But let me show you this technique, and then hopefully you don't need to. So what I'm going to do is to actually try block it off with the masking tape. Now go real light on this, because what you want to do is basically you don't want the paint ripping up, because if I go too hard with the masking tape and then I rip up, I'm going to rip my paint away. So let's just go real quick now here. Boom, boom, boom. Just nice and light. Nothing crazy. Boom. And then I might do a little bit there. Hoping you can see this. And then you just go bang. Just like that. Nice and light. Probably went over the line a little bit. Just boom. So now it's penciled out, and now I can kind of go a bit more aggressive. So first step is you could use steel wool. So steel wool, we're going to do one bit at a time and see which is the most effective for you. So if you use the steel wool, it should come off beautifully, and it is. So we'll do this section, because what the steel wool's doing is basically a light sand as well, really. So I'm a big fan of the steel wool, and it doesn't scratch your board. It's a light grade. Like if you got a heavy grade, a coarse grade in steel wool, then it could impact your board, but by scratching it. But light grade is fine. So that's removed the paint quite nicely there. So that's pretty good. Now we could use the scoured pad, which you can find in any most common kitchens, but we'll see how this goes. So the scour pad doesn't work as good. It's struggling to kind of get that paint off on those bits. So I would say the scour pad's only good for buffering things to paint beforehand. Like if you're buffering a bit of wood and getting rid of the dirt, but for removing paint that's set, it's not as effective as the steel wool. Alright, then we can try the Y and see what happens when we lightly sand it, and try sanding the paper off. So the sanding actually works really good. It made a bit of a mess like that. So I'm just going to pause the video and get a piece of paper towel or tissue or something, to like a rag to wipe it. Okay, we're back. So I've got simple paper towel, I've got a rag. This is the acetone I was talking about. So this is the stuff you'd use for a paint removing or paint thinner. This is the last step. The reason I don't love this is it can eat away at the glass. You need to be very careful, and you can't let it set for too long, because I've seen it, if I leave too much of it on, it can eat away at the fiberglass or plastic thin boxes. But very effective tool, acetone. So just make sure you use this with a parent if you're under 18. And then I've also got my water, because sometimes a little bit of a spray of water can reactivate the paint when it's in this mode, and it can help with the cleaning. So we'll see if we need this. But yeah, I'm going to use this right now, maybe the rag, to just give it a wipe of what we've done. Okay. Probably get rid of that as well. So as you can see, the paint is not coming off. It's not coming off, but that's why we have to put a varnish over it. Like, even though it is waterproof once dried, it's not friction proof, because if I got my fingernails and started scratching, see how it will come off, because it's a non-porous surface. So if it was porous, it would seep in and it would be permanent, but because the paint is on top of the fiberglass, it can actually come off. Therefore, we need to put a varnish over the top to trap it in, and then fingernails can't do anything. So going over our example, the steel wool on the triangle, very good. The scour pad on the P, not that good. The sandpaper block on the white, good as well. And now we've got 2 more bits to see what we want to test out. So I think we will do a little bit of water on the Z. See what water does, reactivating. So just put a little bit of water here. So just a little bit of water, nothing crazy. Let's see what a little bit of water reactivating on the Z. So nothing much. No. No. So that's only going to get a little bit off, but not too much, because the paint is actually waterproof. That's what's coming off right now. Okay, let's try some acetone. And we're going to try the acetone tiny bit on the other end of this little paper clothy thing I've got. So I'm just going to do a tiny dab like that. Saturate it, and we're going to go on the E. And going on the E, oh my god. Yeah. So, as you can see, the E, may as well do the L as well. Oh wow, and then it actually got onto the black. So acetone is very effective at removing the paint. As you can see, that was the acetone. Took me a second, I actually removed some of my good paint, which I can touch up later, that's fine. But if you feel it, it is dry, because I used the tiniest a bit, so it's like kind of same thing as hand sanitizer vibes. When you rub the alcohol together, it dries. So, but it's always a good idea to dab this in a bit of water after. Put the lid back on. Dab this in a little bit of water and just get that acetone off, because we don't want the chemicals sitting on the board. Okay, so that's my advice. If you use acetone, very effective, but just make sure it gets a bit of a wipe down after it, especially on a fiberglass surfboard. Other surfaces that won't eat away at it, you'll be okay, but for a surfboard it's quite thin, so you don't really want to run the risk of acetone sitting on it. But a lot of surfboard shops use window cleaner and acetone to clean the boards, and they sell those boards and they're effective. So yeah, so basically that was steel wool, that was the scour pad, that was using a sandpaper, that was using just a cloth, and then that was using acetone. So acetone's the most effective, steel wool's pretty good, sandpaper block's pretty good, and A rag, I reckon a rag's the best if the paint's still wet, because it's the easiest and least damaging to the board. So definitely use a rag when the paint's wet. It should come straight off. And then I reckon the scour pad's kind of the same thing, but the scour pad, I would use the scour pad for just preparing a surface to paint. It's probably not the best for cleaning. So there you have it. I'm going to probably see if I can get it all off with this steel wool now. Masking tape's acting really well at making sure I don't get the other bits of paint. So that looks really good. Then we simply go, maybe use the rag, get most of it off. Hold on. Rags are really handy. And then you just want to go real light here, because you don't, like I said, you don't want to get the paint peeling off. So that's good. It's always best to do masking tape when it's really dry, the paint, or do it beforehand. But this has been applied nice and lightly, so it's not ripping the paint off. So before any last bits, just grab paint pen. You can use the same one I did before, and just touch it up by going over, and it'll dry beautifully. So that is how you fix or remove the paint to make sure that you can continue your art piece. And I could have done that anywhere. It's just using the masking tape, blocking it off. I've showed you the different types to remove the paint before sealing. If you use a varnish, which is I'll show you in the next video, or the end of this long video, is you're gonna have to use something a bit more coarse, like a coarser sandpaper, or even an electric sander, or acetone is probably gonna work best for when you put a varnish, because the steel wool and scour pad and rag won't cut through the varnish because it's a little bit more protection. But that's okay, it's fully removable. Best practice is to make sure you do it right before you varnish it, but it's not the end of the world if you put a varnish and then you decide you want to change the pattern, or you buy a second-hand board and you don't like the artwork and you want to go over it. There's a couple of things you can actually spray paint over it and start fresh, which can save you a lot of time, but depending on how well you want it to be, comes down to a couple of different techniques. So yeah, I hope you found this video good. The next step is I'm going to varnish this board, and then it's ready to surf. So it's all painted up, got the bottom, and then the back is painted. I actually kind of like the back better, but I'll show you in the next video.